Jota.
Hey. You look less I don't know, less active than normal.
I do. Huh, cool. What does that
Cool.
mean?
I don't know. You're normally very excited about things and all that. And right now, you are. It seems like you are at a normal pace, and you normally are at Patrick's pace.
Yeah, I would say most of the time when you've seen me, I've been panicking about things, and that is my panic energy. Right now, I actually don't have very much to panic about right now. This time is set aside. Honestly, like last week when we were doing that thing, there was another meeting I was supposed to be in at the same time, and it's yeah, Pat. What you know of as Patrick's pace has been Patrick's unsustainable pace, and in 2 months I will be in Latin America. And that doesn't mean my life will be necessarily like easier, but what it's going to do is cut the past of my community-based work here, which is always very stressful because someone always needs something from me and I never have enough money and I never have enough resources, to a situation where most of my work will be done online, um, for the rest of my life. That's my plan. I'll still do on the ground work, but I really want to do virtual language learning and global exchange, with really fun hands-on experiences when they happen. Um, so I still have 2 difficult months, but the last 2 months were very challenging and they're done. So hopefully when I come and visit you, if you see me teach in person, you'll still see that old Patrick come back. So
Well, I doubt that you'll be able to teach in person. Well, like teach online, yeah, but you're going to be here around October, September, October.
through December, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Mm, I doubt that there will be in-person classes here.
Yeah.
Very,
But
yeah.
yeah, but I mean, also online is a little bit the same too. I bring that same kind of panic energy, but
Panic energy.
but I mean, yeah, I hope I just get to go. I'm gonna go no matter what. Doesn't matter because as long as there's some country I can go to, I will go there and I'll figure out a way to visit with you guys and we'll figure
No,
some stuff out.
don't worry. It's going to be nice.
All right, 3 minutes away. Catherine, how do you feel? Do you feel all graduated? Do you like have that feeling
Not
of
really.
being graduated?
Not really. I don't know.
How
I
was
just
your vacation?
felt, yeah, I felt like I was gonna feel, smart and adult, and not really.
No, nothing changes. Things
Yeah.
change slowly, not all at once. But since we have a couple of minutes, I want to something I haven't had a chance to talk to you about as we're finishing up this project. But uh, let's, if you're interested, I want to bring you into our teacher training program too. I know you already have your certificate, but like to get you some direct experience. Or you can work with Jota. Well, actually, Jota's a little bit on hold right now, but May's here. Uh-oh. Lindsay, you haven't connected your audio yet. See if she's still doing that. Oh yeah, there we go. Hey, Lindsay. How's
Hey,
it going?
good. How about yourself?
Good. May, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I sent out a little reminder. Do you have want to start with a little warm-up activity or something, Jota?
Let's start by sharing what we do.
Yeah.
And why did you actually enroll for this workshop? What do you expect from this? Okay, should I call on people?
Definitely, because no one knows if it's up their turn or not, and so no one will want to speak if you don't.
Okay, so Lindsay, let's start with you.
I enrolled in this workshop because I wanted to learn something new.
Okay, what do you do exactly?
I'm in training right now to get my TEFL certificate. I finished the coursework with ITA and now I'm working with PPT for the practicum section.
I'm not going to ask you about the practicum because then you're going to say things about Patrick. No. Okay, so nice. I'm curious, why did you decide to become an English teacher?
I went to school for linguistics and I really love English, and I think it would be fun to learn how to teach others to improve their skills. And I love to meet new people from other cultures, and I also travel a lot, and it just like made sense.
Nice. Do you speak another language?
Not very well, but I studied a few.
Okay, which one did you study?
I did Spanish, Arabic, and American Sign Language, and a little bit of French.
Okay. Which one was more difficult to learn?
Arabic.
Okay. And well, I'm going to ask that later to everybody. So, but Spanish, Arabic, sign language, a little bit French. Nice. And then we have May, right? Okay, May, tell us something
Hi.
about. Hi. So, why did you enroll to this crazy workshop with me?
Well, this is my second time, and well, the first time I came, I think I got a lot of ideas. So I hope like this time I would get like a lot of ideas so I can use some things in my teaching.
So you are an English teacher?
Yeah. Well, so I'm working with Patrick as an accountability coordinator, and I used to train with PPT for 2 years, and now I'm kind of just starting my own business about like teaching English. So yeah, I would say yes.
Okay. And what languages do you speak?
Thai.
Thai. Okay. Is English, like, if you compare grammar, like English and Thai, are they very different, or they just follow similar patterns?
It's very different. Like it all just different. Like the tone, the intonations, just everything is different.
Okay. And you have a master's in TESOL, and you didn't mention that.
Oh, right, I forget. Yes, I have a master in tea. So yes, and that's how like I connect with Patrick, because I used to study MAT Saw in Portland, and I did a practicum with PPT, and that's how like kind of I've been know him like 4 years. So he's like another uncle to me right now.
Okay. Nice. And I'm terrible with names. So we have Bashir.
Yes, sounds good.
There you go. So can you tell us something about you? What do you do? Are you an English teacher too, or what?
English on the path, I guess you could say. English teacher in training. I haven't yet received my TESOL cert.
Okay. And why did you enroll to this workshop?
Anything and everything I can learn about English, I am willing to put in the time to. The more I learn, the better I can get at being a English teacher. The more I can help my students in the future.
That's nice. When I hear teach and help, I like that connection. Nice. And we have Catherine. Catherine, why are you here?
Well, I'm working with Patrick and you on these workshops, and like why I'm interested in this specific workshop. I got my TEFL certificate from a university, and so they have a lot of like very like standard curriculum. It's very rigid, and learning something different is always helpful, and seeing a different point of view. They don't really teach a lot of like the like brand new innovative things. So it's always interesting to hear about those things. Yeah.
Nice. And Patrick, what about you?
Well, honestly, Jota, when I met you about 4 years ago, you were in Portland with the YLife program. And when you were talking to me about, I hope this is feels right to you, but I think you told me like you were frustrated with the model that a lot of English institutes were using in Peru, and there wasn't a lot of room for creativity and engagement. And your blending of digital technologies and language teaching to create engaging language learning spaces was just like, that is what I've been dreaming of for 25 years. Like, that's what I want to do. And you were so far along in the sort of digital space where I'd been doing a really working in a classroom space with learners, that it was really exciting to me. And I think every time we interact, I get a new tool that changes everything that I do. So I just, it's because of you, buddy.
Okay, now I feel nervous again, like last workshop. Now, one thing just to point out what Patrick said, you just have to be very careful, because if you have a vision and you have this vision of how you teach, uh, whenever you start teaching, and in my case, whenever you start with training teachers and have your own team, sometimes you end up making the mistakes that making all the mistakes that make you start your teaching style. So right now I am in this part of that I realized that some of the things that I didn't like about the traditional model, not only about the class itself, but how I handle the teaching, the team, all that, I took from that and put it in change without noticing it. I'm in the middle of correcting those things. It's an easy correction, but it happens. At some point when you get into routine, even if you're using something like gameful design, you're using autonomy or agile principles, you get into a routine that makes you not innovate because you feel so comfortable and it works. So at some point, you just get there, stay and just stay there. So you always need to get in touch with different crazy teachers and listen to their ideas, try them, see if they work or not, and never be close. And they say, no, my style is better and things like that. Otherwise, you're going to end up doing what we normally see as teachers that want to change the model. You're going to be part of the dark side. So be careful with that. Now, it's nice. Well, we have, I think, people that are, well, all of you love teaching, that's for sure. The other thing is that some of you are like English is your second language, right? Uh-huh. And then we have people that have learned a second language or partly learned a second language. So and that is very interesting in terms of, because I have heard that a lot from in different countries. Like, I took Spanish in high school, I don't know anything, or I took so it's so common. Or you learn a language and actually you're very fluent. So what makes that difference? How did you actually learn that language, and why do you think you didn't learn the other, apart from being difficult? If you are teachers or becoming teachers now, from a teacher's perspective, what worked and what didn't work? I don't know. Who wants to jump in first? Raise your hand. or two hands? Nobody wants. Okay, this is like a school. Lindsay, okay.
I think a lot of it has to do with practice. I don't speak Arabic with anybody. I don't speak Spanish with anybody. And I think that's a big reason. But also like while I was in those classes, I wasn't really like given or didn't seek out realistic practice situations with anyone.
Okay, okay. So practice is a key point. What else? Okay, Catherine.
So technically English is my second language. I learned it when I was 8. But I remember when I was learning English, they would take me out of my regular classes and have like a specific like time to like do, you know, deep English practice. So I think having that constant, you know, throughout the school day, throughout the day, my parents would speak English to me, you know, it's always constant. And so I ended up forgetting all my Spanish. And then when I started learning Spanish again, I didn't really start learning it more until college. And that was because I was reading books in Spanish on my free time. So having that motivation, and I only got it when I was in college. My high school teachers with Spanish, I didn't care, you know, and they didn't really make me want to care. It wasn't until college that I started caring. So I think that was part of it too.
Okay, motivation. Anybody else wants to share something? Should I just jump in into what I wanted to say? Bashir? No? Okay. Nobody. Okay, good. So here's the thing with language learning. Even if it is Spanish, Arabic, French, or English that is so popular, pretty much everybody goes into the same direction. And Lindsay and Catherine mentioned that, practice. So they even if it is taught in the States, if it is taught in any other place, they have the same issue. Like they follow a pattern and they forget a little bit about practice. And there are some students that and I give you a specific example with students that we have. They just need English because they want to go to the States and enjoy a trip. They are not going to take an international exam. They don't need it for school, and they don't need it for business. Okay, they just want to be able to survive a trip to the United States. Not in Miami, because in Miami they find a lot of people that speak Spanish, so they mainly speak Spanish. But if they go to a different state, okay, so then if you follow the same pattern, they are not going to be motivated. You're giving them a 3-year course focused on grammar and vocabulary, and they're not going to be able to, okay, I want to go to a restaurant or go to Disney and ask for something, or go and visit and interact in the airport. So then you're not giving them the choice. You have a package and you teach everybody the same way. You give them the same content, and then you're losing motivation. The same happened when you learn Spanish or Arabic, and then you mentioned that you didn't have time to practice. So what about creating those spaces in which you want to practice? Some people are focused more on the grammar. Some people are focused more on the interaction. So some people want to use the English at a business English level. Some others don't care about business. So if you follow the same path, then you're going to lose the students in terms of motivation. So that goes with autonomy. We were talking the other few workshops of 3 things: autonomy, relation, and challenge. Today we're just going to focus on autonomy, but and it's super important. That's why I have a separate workshop for this. I'm very, very, very visual, so I'm going to show you something that is going to, and I'm going to give you different types of examples that we're going to build with you right now. And this is what we're going to do. Okay, so this is Simbaloo. Okay, the learning path of Simbaloo. I like and Patrick is starting to love this tool too. And because you can actually create learning paths. Okay, so I'm going to just delete that. And this is a grid. You can make this as big as you want or as small as you want. So if it is a learning path, because every student can have this, or you can make it a little bit more, so like bigger if it is more complex. So I'm going to give you different kind of examples. You are English teachers or you are being trained. So I'm going to jump from a program for a teacher and a program for a student. Okay, since you are now, you have a master's in TESOL, you are doing your practicum, or you have completed your TFL certification, then I'm going to start with a part of as a teacher being trained, because you're fresh with that. Okay, so this is the beginning, the starting point. Okay, so I create, don't worry about that. I'm just using this. And you have just this house. This is the starting point. If you talk about languages, this is basic one. Or if you're talking about training, this is where you register and you're going to start your first course. If you took the course of ITA, I think it's principles, teaching principles, something like that. Okay. But normally what we have, and I'm going to do this super fast. Normally what we have is this. You go to step 2, and then you go to the step 1, then you go to step 2, and then you go to step 3, and everything becomes a sequence, and it's just a line. Okay, so what they tell you is you have to study this, then you have to study that, then you have to study that, and then you have to study that, and then at the beginning you're super engaged. At some point it's like, okay, this is not for me, and you lose motivation. I have a question for you, so you don't get bored with my voice. Normally in English teaching, in what level do students lose motivation? Have you heard that? It's called the level in English. When you're learning English, in what level do they normally lose motivation? You have 3 options: basic, intermediate, or advanced. I need an answer, even in the chat.
Should we type in the chat?
You can do it in the chat. You can activate your microphone and just shout the answer. Which is the level where students lose most of the motivation and drop out of language programs? Okay, Catherine says advanced. Lindsay says intermediate. Asking. Okay, so actually the answer is intermediate. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when you are in basic, even if it's not what you want, those are the basics, and you are learning, and every day you seem to learn something. And then when you get to intermediate, this is called the intermediate plateau. It gets flat, and you actually feel that you are not moving forward, because that's what happens with intermediate. You have to expand your vocabulary, expand and practice more. And if you don't have that resource for practice, then you lose motivation and drop out. And they don't get to advance. If you check English programs, it's funny that 70% of the people that drop out from an English program do it in intermediate. Okay, because there is where you actually start. You want to make decisions. So let's think about that. Have you played video games? You can raise your hand or move your head and all of that. Yes, there you go. And you can use old school video games or new video games. How is level 1? Or how is normally level 1 called? Games. Okay, or think of a board game. What happens when you buy a new board game or somebody wants to play a board game? What do you do at first? What is the first thing you do? Okay, we call it a setup. Could be setup, like we're going in the right direction. We have the setup in the video game, but what do we do? How do you learn this new board game or video game? What do you start doing? The chat is very popular. Training mode, tutorial. There you go. Okay, nice. So tutorial. Actually, you do that, and they call the first level is a tutorial. And even with games, and board games, you do the same. when you don't know the game and you have a friend, he's going to try to explain you the rules, and then they say, don't worry, let's play one round and then you will learn it. And basically the first round is that, okay, and what do I do here? And what do I do that? And then you are engaged into the game, okay? So that happens all the time at the first levels. Video game designers know that 90% of the people are going to like stop playing the game in level 1 if it is too frustrating. If they cannot pass that level, then they won't continue. And it's like most people would do. That's why they include a tutorial. Okay, and that's why in English or in any language, the basic levels are so motivating because they are easy to understand. And then you feel motivated for more, and then you get stuck. Okay, so if you want this one, the first step, like in your training, you can call it principles. Okay, so we're going to create principles. You always have to start with something. Like you have principles like this. You have to know the basics, and then you can actually choose where to go. In video games, it's the same. If you know the basics, then you can start doing things like this. So then I have alternative 1. And then, so let's put it short like that. Or if I want, I have alternative 2. So that is giving you, I'm going to give you a specific example, okay? And you have different ways. So this is visually what you should do as a teacher. Give them alternatives or which paths to go. So we are at the beginning, then we go here, and then once they complete level 1 or the tutorial or whatever you want them to complete, then they can choose their paths. Okay. Let's focus on teacher training for the first exam. And I'm going to ask Catherine, what group age do you want to teach?
Adults.
Okay. You don't want to teach kindergarten kids?
Not really.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't really have a lot of experience in kids, so I want to stay with something I'm comfortable with and something I learned.
Okay.
So it's mainly from what I learned from school or from the certificate program.
Nice, nice. And what about Lindsay? What age group would you like to teach?
I also would prefer adults, but I'm okay with teaching kids too.
Okay, you're okay. So I'm going to give you a class of 3 years old and 5 kids online to see that it's worth when it's in person because you have other problems. Who else? I cannot see everybody. Bashir, what age group would you want to teach?
I still gotta say adults. I don't have the energy level to teach children.
Okay. So he already identified something, and then we have Amy, right? Which age group do you want to teach?
You mean May?
May.
Me?
Sorry,
Are you talking to me?
I'm
Yes.
dyslexic.
So no, that's okay. I think right now I plan to teach 10 to 15.
So those are pre-teens and teens that age, okay? So
Yeah.
once you complete your basic training in teaching, for example, you are actually, you know the basics, classroom management, you know board use and things like that are common in all of the classes. Then what happens if I tell you, for example, I tell Catherine, okay, Catherine, you have to study how to teach kids, and then it's like, but, and then obviously she's not going to be that motivated to study that because she actually is not going to go in that direction. Maybe she discovers that she likes teaching kids and then she finds motivation later. So it's always good to be exposed to something like that. So normally when you have a teaching program, if you actually have the opportunity to observe, so the principles, the basic thing that you have to do apart from learning the basics, probably is also go for some observation of different classes, and then you have the options. So Catherine goes into this direction, it's teaching adults. And then we have, who else? Lindsay decided to go in teaching adults, but she's also going to take the teaching kids just in case. And then May, no, I'm going to go for preteens and teens. And then Bashir is going to go for adults too. So you actually pick what you want to study. And there are some specific things that are only for this. So if you're teaching kids, for example, you're going to learn more about being jumping up and down and things like that, how to use those techniques. Okay. Now, at some point, and it could happen that at some point we have something like technology. Okay. And then if you think like that, technology one or something like that. Okay. If you think like that, then kids or adults, kids and teenagers, all of them need this, all of them. So that you can merge the path. Okay. This is just to show merging paths. And then like that. So you go there and you actually see this map, okay, and you find this in video games. Okay, normally you find this in video games because you can choose your path. Maybe these two merge in this, maybe this doesn't need that. So it's actually up to you, up to the designer of how they do that. So it could look like that. Okay, so you have three alternatives. Now that is in a training program. Like, I am not a teacher training program, but I'm not a teacher trainer. So what do I do? But first, before moving forward with a class itself, do you have any questions about this? This is very visual. That's why I use it. Any questions about why this works, why it doesn't, or something that you don't like about it? This concept of giving them choices. What problems you may have? No? We have a very quiet audience. Okay. Okay. No problem.
Bashir has raised his hand.
Okay, Bashir. Okay.
Add to unmute real quick. My question is, how do you know you're giving them enough curriculum? I mean, how do you know you're not giving them too much to try and handle at once?
Okay. So that is a good question. How do you know if this is good curriculum? It's basically what you do. This is less than a regular program, okay? Because what you do first is you have your whole plan, even if it is a class, a lesson plan, or it's a unit or a semester. And if it is a training program, you have the whole training program, everything that a teacher should know, and then you start picking the paths. So giving them the options. So in terms of quantity, is basically the same, but the teacher is not going to go all over the whole material because they are going to pick whatever they are going to be working at. So in terms of covering too much, this makes them cover less. Because if you actually don't want to teach kids, you're not going to cover material related to teaching kids. But if you want to teach kids, then you cover that. And if you want to go back, then you go back to this step and take that learning path. And you have your certification of adults and kids. But you actually choose. Nobody imposes things. Now, the difference, but you can say like, okay, that is like modules. I do the basic, and then I have model for kids, a model for business English, and model for this. The difference is that it's not necessarily models, because the design goes deeper in terms of skills you need to have for each of them. So what we do is that if there is a skill that is common for teaching kids, for teaching adults, and for teaching whatever you want to teach, then you put it in on a merge level. So you actually go over that, even if you're teaching kids or adults and all that, and that saves time. Why does it save time? Because if you cover that, then you don't need to cover that when you're doing the kids model. We know what you need to do. So that is the way it is designed. It saves time, it increases motivation, and because you are actually picking your path, okay? And then you can go back you can jump things. The other thing that it's super cool is that, for example, I can have this, okay? And this goes also for language learning. You can have this test one. What happens if I have a teacher that has experience, like he has many years of experience and is good and has been innovating and all that, and he can demonstrate that. Not when I say test, not necessarily it's a test, it could be a demo lesson or things like that. So when this person comes in and actually demonstrate that he has the knowledge, then maybe he can skip some of this and go directly to a stage 3 or a stage 4, which is fair because he already knows something. Okay. Now, what happens if you are not sure and you are a teacher? Yeah, I have some experience. I want to try this out. It's cool. You can try option A and option B. If you pass option B, then you move forward. If you don't, then you continue in the regular path. So that is like a video game. Like if you think of Mario Bros, you can complete the whole level and finish level 1 and go to level 2, or you can find the secret passage and take a different pipe, and then you go to level 7, something like that. So you prove your skills. Obviously, in this case, in education, you just prove your skills. Okay. Now we're going to use the same map. Unless you have questions, I want to move forward for a class, to a class itself, and give you 3 examples of autonomy. Patrick, you raise your hand.
I was just giving you a thumbs up because I thought that I think you're doing great. That's all.
Okay. Okay.
By the way, I just learned something new. I didn't know you could make paths like that. I thought you had to have something in each square, and I've been trying to figure out how to do that. So this is really, I learn something new every time.
Okay. Now, something about the paths, Patrick, if you want to see when you use this tool, it has direction.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how to make that too.
So I can actually put this back and send people back to another direction. Okay. So something like that. Obviously, I cannot track them to the beginning because that would kill the rules of gamification or gamifying. Because you normally, when you fail in gameful design, you don't go back to the start. You have always checkpoints, but you can also go back to different stages, okay? But those are checkpoints, like a boss battle or things like that. So now this has become a little bit, it looks actually like a game and not a lesson plan, but this could be a lesson plan, or this could be a syllabus. This could be a unit design, or we call it learning sprints because there are 2 weeks and they complete the objectives in 2 weeks. So the first way that you can actually give a student's choice. So let's just, you get to a stage when they have to, you have to assess them, okay? One thing, you have to assess them. You get to this point, they have already learned something, the grammar, the vocabulary, and they have to communicate using the target language about, I don't know, recycling, or they have to do any topic that they are using, superheroes or thing like that. Normally, what we do as teachers is, okay, you're going to create a presentation. Okay, I'm just reading the questions. Exactly, it could be overwhelming the first time. So that's why I'm just telling you, you have to do this slowly. The first time you move to this autonomy, they are even scared. And this is a psychological experiment. You can test it out, especially with kids, before I move on with this explanation. Whenever kids ask for something or are demanding, and you can do this most of the time, it works. And then they say, yeah, we want to go to, it's time during class, and they say, we want to go to a patio, we want to go to a patio, we want to go to a patio. And then you just seriously, it's like, okay, go to the patio. And it's in the middle of a class. Most of the time, they won't do it. Most of the time, I'm not saying like always, because they get scared when they have the choice. If they know, now, if it is a new teacher, they are going to go out. But if they know the teacher and he knows the rules and they know that something could happen, they would say like, okay, you go, okay, you go, because they are scared of that autonomy of making decisions. Most of the time, the education system blocks that. So whenever you give them choice, they feel scared or confused. So you have to do it little by little. So I'm going to give you different examples on how to do that. So for example, autonomy. How do you promote autonomy without designing a whole program that they actually pick their path? So this is a class. You have a final assignment. Okay, so let's just forget about this. So it's not, let's make it easier. Okay, so very simple like that. And this is like the finishing. So you teach, they complete this, you have the final assignment, and they have to talk about recycling. Okay, normally we have, okay, let's have a presentation and you use your PowerPoint and then we grade you. So, and everybody wants to do that. And then you say, okay, this is the final assignment. The topic is recycling. We already covered the vocabulary. We covered the grammar. Let's imagine, I don't know, simple past or whatever you're using. And then for the final assignment, you decide. Okay, so the first alternative is you decide. You can have a PowerPoint presentation. You can make a commercial promoting something good for recycling, or maybe you can actually create an article for a newspaper. So you are making it very varied. Okay, so you're giving them the chance to pick which is better for them. Now, it sounds like it's going to be more work for you, but it's not, because these kind of projects, all of them focus on the same objectives. So it's very important that you have the learning objectives, and then you create a rubric. You are not going to be assessing the quality of the design in this case, but you are going to be assessing the content and the quality of communication. Even if it is written, if it is oral, or if it is in a commercial, recorded, all that, or if it is in a live PowerPoint presentation. What you want to see is that the students can demonstrate a clear communicative objective, okay? And they pick. What is going to happen here? The students that are good, maybe you have students that are really good, are into video editing, they're going to pick this direction. And maybe have a group, a team, all that. People that don't want to complicate their lives and they're like, no, I prefer to be just a simple PowerPoint and present, they go for the other, they pick the other direction. People that are a little bit shy and they want to do it, or maybe record a video and write an article about it, then they pick the third option, okay? Now, when you give autonomy to students, you have to give them choices. What is not good to do is when you go in and like, okay, final assignment, you have to create something about recycling. And then they get scared and they don't actually know what to do. And they actually, too many choices, and they don't know which one is right. And I always give this example when I talk about autonomy in this setting. If I have a daughter, she's almost 3, and we have a wedding very soon coming. And if I tell her, pick anything that you want and let's go to the wedding, she could even wear pajamas and or something like that. And it's going to be funny. I don't care about that, but it's not going to be appropriate for the wedding. But if I actually give her 3 dresses or whatever clothes I want, the 3 options, then she can pick something that is going to be good, because you know what is supposed to happen. As a teacher, you know what you want your students to prove. So that's why you pick, you make a selection of that. Now, it's not only your experience that comes in hand, you have to have students' profiles. We talked about that last workshop, but I'm going to go over that very quickly. Instead of thinking about, he's a visual learner, or he learns better in this way and all that, when you talk about gameful design, you talk about players, okay? And you have different types of players. So you have players that are the socializers. So one of these activities are more on that sense, like socializing with people and creating something. Maybe creating the commercial has more of that because there has more discussion and things like that. Then you have the ones that are players itself. So they want more the badges, the recognition of all of that. So you have to include in the design how you're going to recognize that. Then you have maybe the achievers, okay? And the achievers are the ones that want to have the higher score. So, and then we have something. And then Patrick is putting something in the chat that is super important. And then these achievers are going to analyze the three alternatives. And what they're going to do is like, which one is better for us and how we can get the higher score. So, and they are going to pick the one that is better for them. So we have the free spirits that are the one that they actually explore. So they're going to test which one, let's try this and all that, okay? So those are types of players. And the idea here is that the activities that you design are aimed at that, okay? So they can satisfy different types of players, but you are giving them the choice, they pick. Don't overcomplicate your life with 10 options because that's too much. Where normally when you have three like this or four, it's good. Now, I'm going to give you, so far, this is one type of autonomy, okay? When they actually pick the type of presentation or assignment, if you want to say. Any questions about this?
I have one. What do you think is a
Okay.
good number of options for people to not be overwhelmed, but to feel that they are making their own choice?
I like three. Honestly, I have worked with 3 or 4, not more, because then it gets too complicated for the students to pick, and it gets too complicated for the teachers to assess. So whenever you actually pick something like this, you have to think of the students and you have to think of yourself. If it is way too complicated, then it's better not to go there. Think about, remember, you have a life. You don't want to spend the whole weekend correcting things. So so it has to be something that is balanced between that. Okay. So I'm going to just put random things here to give you the second example of a different type of. Okay. So now this could be like lesson 1, lesson 2. This could be a test. Okay, any these steps, it depends on the class you're taking. So and this is like the ending. Okay, now in this case, I'm going to give you only 2 choices. Okay, and I normally we do that when I design a course like this. They pick from day 1. Okay, and what do we pick? This is a different type of autonomy in which they choose if they want to work in groups or teams, or they want to work individual. Okay. Now, if you see, we always have this thing that everybody has to cover, and then they have option 1 is actually the group work project. Okay. So what happens if you see it's skipping a lot of stuff and goes directly to the final assessment. And if you choose the individual projects, you have to complete 2 projects. Maybe you can even add a third one. So what you are telling them is this: you want to go, you work in teams, you complete 1 project. And obviously it's going to be a little bit bigger. That's why you need 4 people in the team. Or if you prefer, you can do it on your own and complete 1, 2, 3 projects, but they have to be smaller and easier compared to the big project of teams. And then you're going to discover interesting thing about your students, like who prefers to work alone in this type of assessment, or if they are introverts or things like that. That you can promote, or if you want to promote people to work in teams, then you can lure them into the team project with some benefits or things like that. But this is difficult. Okay, this has to be difficult, has to be a challenge, and this have to be a challenge too, but easier to complete in comparison. Okay, now it has, in terms of grade, so grading, they have the same value. Okay, you cannot say like, if you complete the project, you get an A. If you the group project, you get an A. But if you complete the individual project, you only can get a B. No, you have to have the choice. You pick your path, and your top grade is the same one path or the other. So it's super important that you design it that way. Otherwise, it's not fair. You are not giving them the choice. It's like forcing them to pick something. Okay, it's like parents when they say you can you can eat your vegetables or your hamburger, but if you eat only the hamburger, you're grounded. Like they're actually not giving you the choice. You're forcing them. So far this is a different kind of autonomy because they pick what type of project they want, individual or group. Now, why do I do that a lot in online teaching? Basically, because I want to promote and discover things about my students, about introvert, extroverts, and all that, but also because of technology. Okay. In online settings, depending on the country that you are, or even in in-person settings, for some students, it's very easy to actually get together. Even if it is virtually or if it is in person, it's very easy for them to get together and work as a team. But there are some other projects that some other students that it's very, very complicated. It's not that they don't want to, but it gets super complicated to actually get it together and work together with their classmates. So if you only give them the group project, it's going to cause a lot of stress. And if you're working with kids or teenagers, not only for the teenagers, but for the parents, and the parents are going to hate you because it's not the project itself, but the factor that they have to get together that is causing stress. Okay, so this solves that issue and gives them more freedom. Questions about this? No? Chat in the chat. Should I pick somebody? Because I'm going to go for level 3 of autonomy. No? Okay.
Well, I have one question. Um, so you said that 3 options was like a good rounded. So taking classes, they always gave us like 2, 3 options, and then they had an extra option. It's like, do whatever you want, but like check with me as a teacher. Do you think that would be a good like alternative for like students who like are very shy or they really want to go up and beyond, or is that just something a little too complicated for a teacher to do or assess?
So that is with the type of players. Normally the player that is going to go for that alternative of doing something that is not in the class, it's called a disruptor. So it's this player that always wants to change something. Okay. Now, according to research, the other day we saw that, is that only 1% of students, you're going to find 1% of the students that are disruptors. But to be fair, you can add that extra thing. But make sure that they have to double check if it is okay to do that. Because sometimes they get into a so complicated thing that they don't manage to complete it and then they fail, not because they don't know, because it was too much. Okay, so it's possible to leave that open. But not only in this when they pick, but in general in your class, just create those little opportunities for the disruptors to discover mistakes in your design and say, teacher, if we actually do this, we can get more points. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So the idea is clear. Now, to do that, I'm going to use something a little bit more confusing. Okay, hope whenever I do this, this is where people start making funny faces. So I hope this works fine. Okay, so let me see if I can if my computer works fine. So these are the time where you actually can drink water for me. Okay, so I'm going to show this. This. Tell me if I'm going too fast in this part. Okay. 10 points to do a presentation. Okay, so that we're going to talk about bonus, and that gives also autonomy. You decide to do this or not. Check this out. Okay. Okay, this is like well, I'm going to start completing things like this, okay? So this is basically how you this when you decide your choices and all of that. This is for the teacher, okay? You can give this also to the student because they actually simulate things, okay? You're watching the Excel, right? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So you can actually put anything here, attendance, or you can put like week 1 or term 1 or week 2, whatever. Okay. Whatever you want. Okay. And then we're just going to copy this in all of them because imagine you repeat the same thing. It could be anything. Okay. Now the nice thing about this is that I'm going to show you how the students actually pick this is good. So required, if this is required, yes or no. So this is optional, this is not. Speaking assignments, this is required. Okay, write it, like for example, this no, this yes. Practice quiz, maybe no. In class work, maybe no. Okay, so just to give you an idea, randomly picking what the student needs to do and what the student is not required to complete. Okay, now if it is not required, that means that he can get points for that. But if the student doesn't actually do that, they can actually pass. Not necessarily get an A, but they can pass. So the things that you put as required is that what you have identified as the minimum thing that they have to show that they have learned to actually pass your course. Okay. Now it seems like this is going to be an easy course. I have done this. I have just finished a training with university professors. We completed this, and then they realized that they were passing students that didn't know. Okay, because this is more strict, but it's more fun. Okay, so let's imagine we have just 5, 4, 3, 5 of this, and in class work we have 10 classes, and we let's see, like everything is required at the beginning. Okay, so you can see this, and you just put the points. I like working with a lot of points. You're going to see why. And then the writing assignments are like this. The speaking assignments are 4,000 each. The practice quizzes 1,000 each. In class work every day I can give you 2,000 points. Okay, so right now it's 6,000 points in this category. Okay, and then you have the option of cap it. When you cap this number of points, is that you have optional activities. Okay, so the bonus track. So you can say like, but you don't know. Do you know what is a bonus track? We used to have that when we have CDs and cassettes. The bonus track. We don't have that anymore, right, Patrick? Do we have bonus tracks?
Do we have what now?
Bonus tracks.
A bonus track in
Or what happened?
a bonus track in this program?
No. I mean when you buy. Well, you remember when you bought a CD or a cassette,
Right,
you got a bonus track.
Yeah.
That concept doesn't exist, right, anymore in music.
I don't know about music, but I feel like the equivalent right now is when you go see an Avengers movie and you wait until after the credits in order to see the teaser for the next, installment of the Marvel Comics universe. Is kind of like that.
Okay. Yeah, well, in the past we used to have these cassettes and CDs, and whenever you get an extra song, you got so excited because it was the extra, the bonus. So you can actually do that here and put like bonus, I don't know, assignment. Okay. So the student is going to pick, okay, do I do that? I have 2, and they are like 950 points. I'm going to do that. You're checking the screen, the Excel, right? Because my screen went off and then came back. Is it okay? So you have only in week 1 you're playing for this amount of points. Okay, just for the workshop, we are just going to say that week 2 is basically the same. It's normally doesn't happen. So, but let's imagine that. Now, cap at is when you have optional activities. Let's see. I know you're English teachers, but let's see if you can do the math. If this is the total amount of points and I have one bonus, two bonus assignments, and this is like this, what is the cap? Don't
Does
use
it change
calculator.
the cap? Oh, okay.
60,000, because these are optional. So if somebody doesn't do it, it's okay. So this is just for you to get the grades exactly like that. Okay, there are different ways of doing this, but let's let's imagine that. So those are the maximum points that you are going to give a student in week 1 and in week 2. So and this is the super nice thing about this. And the other thing is that you have your total, okay, percentage of additional assignments, 3%. So that is, you have 3% of additional assignments. Those are your bonus track. You can increase more, okay? But it just gives you some information, okay? Just check that. Now, the other thing that you do is you come here and then you start playing with this. Honestly, you start playing with this. This is the total points of your course. This is the total points that you give the students because you have optional activities. And then you start modifying. So, for example, to get an A plus, you can say like, I'm going to give, if you get 110,000 or more, you get an A plus. So that means 92%. Now, then you go to the F. I don't know, let's put, what do you think is a good number for this? For the F. Anybody? 10,000? How many points? I feel alone. 75. And you keep on going. Okay. So whatever since I don't have any response, I'm just going to move forward. What you do is just create your scale. It doesn't matter if you're assessing with A, B, you can create different names, pass, no pass, or whatever. But here is where you see how difficult is your course to pass. Now, in Peru, we don't grade with A, B, C, or we have grading on 20 points. So at the end, you have 20, and then I can transform it, and you pass with 11. So imagine you have your 11, then, and you say that your 11 is this. Okay, this is your 11. Now, here is where, as a teacher, you ask the question: how much knowledge, or how much should they actually show that they have learned to say that, okay, they actually have learned and they can pass. I don't like using the word pass, but to make it easier. Is 50% something good, or is too low? It should be 75,000, so 63%. So here is when it becomes fair, okay? Because you actually know how much knowledge they need to have. What we discovered when we start doing this gamified system is that some students were actually moving forward without proving that they have the basic knowledge. So what happens, they move somehow with their system, and they got to an intermediate level where they have to remember everything they did in basic. And they couldn't, because they actually didn't learn. They passed tests, they didn't prove knowledge. And then intermediate was too difficult for them, and they drop out. So it seems that you're being more strict, but no, you're being fair. Now, it doesn't mean that your focus is on the percentages, but it gives you an idea on how much knowledge, or how their skills should be to actually demonstrate that they have learned. Okay, some people call it passing. It's just how much they need to cover so to demonstrate they have learned. Okay, so far so good. No autonomy here. I'm just telling you the numbers and all that. Are you confused already? Kind of. Okay.
I think this is, I'll just jump in, and maybe hopefully that'll inspire some other folks to do so too. I mean, I think that one of, what you have here is a gamified administrative structure to help kind of determine when people have reached certain levels of proficiency. But this is exactly the same as any kind of academic system. You know, there might be a different number of zeros and, you know, you've got it matched to the grade. I wonder, one of the challenges with both an academic system and a point system when you're trying to match to real world skills is, you know, what exactly do you do to help people to ensure that people are reaching certain proficiency levels. Some people might need to practice 15 times more than other people and reach that. And this becomes very complicated, right? Because now you're spending a lot of time like determining how many points people have, and it's starting to lose connection to the outcomes that you're hoping to have, right?
Okay, that's true, because this is actually a step 9 from 10 steps that you follow when you design using gameful design. First, you start with the objectives, then the type of players, then you design the type of assignments, which are basically, I just put it here randomly. In the type of assignments, you actually decide how you're going to, the activities, if you're going to have rubrics and how to assign them, if there's going to be presentations or things like that, if they have to be written programs, and what happens if somebody actually doesn't match that and needs to do something else. So you do that prior to this. When you have that, then you put it here. Okay, but since we are talking about autonomy, I wanted to go here to show you something where the students can actually, and the power of this tool is this. Okay, so imagine I can simulate my path. Okay, so here is where the last type, when you actually internalize gameful design, they can pick their paths and predict their grade, predict their learning, and choose what they want to do. So they say like, I'm going to complete 3 of these, and then you just, so let's imagine I'm going to do it perfectly, and I have this, I don't have anything here. Okay, so they actually can, and then here I get, I think I'm, or maybe in the middle, they already have the results or grading or feedback from week 1, and they start completing this. Okay, so they actually, I always give this to students, especially when they have a semester or something that is longer, and then this was terrible, and then half of it, and then something like that. Okay. Now, this is not updated because I need to correct this in terms of percentage and things like that, and these points, because it gets the information there. But this is going to change according to the points that they are making or the points that they are predicting to make. So what happens? Here is where they start choosing how they want to pass the course. If they seem like they're reading assignment, normally they struggle at reading, and they say, okay, this teacher is going to give me 10 readings or whatever. Let's see, I'm going to get only half of the points, but if I get half of the points, then I can do the bonus assignment, and they know what the bonus assignment is. So they say, okay, if I do this, I can balance this, and I can prove that I have learned. I have difficulties in writing, and I have this amount of points, or I improve my writing, or I do something about it. So the thing is that they actually start picking their paths and choosing which bonus assignments or how many activities they're going to complete. You can have more flexibility in these things. They can see the group assignment versus the individual assignments and choose, okay, I can get this, and that, and they decide how they want to actually pass or prove to the teacher that they have actually learned. So the powerful tool for that, of that Excel, is not necessarily the one that the teacher is designing. The powerful part for autonomy is when you give that Excel file to the student to simulate his or her grades. Okay, so it means that they can pick and see, and obviously for that to work, you have to have that ready before day 1, so they can actually move and analyze and see, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. They start talking to their friends, let's do this and all that. And then something that I have added in, especially when it's university courses, a walkthrough. Okay, so the students from previous years actually that have gone through this course before, they give tips. So they say like the writings are really complicated, so it's better for with this teacher that you complete this and that. Forget about the bonus; it's not worth it. And they start telling you how to break the code and how to pass this, but proving that you have learned. So the idea is that it becomes like a walkthrough of a video game, and you choose your path of learning. This was designed for a semester, so it has week 1, week 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8. You can design it in different ways too. Okay, but it's like the final step of designing a course with gameful design. Prior to that is what Patrick already mentioned. You have to decide really carefully what type of assignments or activities you're going to include in your class. Okay. Now, what happens in our design is that normally when I design a course, I don't use only gameful design, but I use agile principles. So that means that every time we finish a 2-week sprint, we get feedback and we have a retrospective session with the students, and we see if it is convenient to move forward or just review, or if it is convenient to review with a group of students and do some extra activities with the rest. But that is a different thing. But if you start doing that all at once, especially if you are just beginning to teach, it's going to be really, really complicated and overwhelming. So the first thing that I recommend when you talk about autonomy, think of little examples of autonomy and add them to your class, picking the type of assignment, picking the type of activity. And then when the students get used to that, okay, I can choose this, and that, then you let them choose. That is choosing which activities they're going to complete or not. Okay, but you have to be very careful that you have analyzed that they are not going to pass. Okay, and then that is when you start putting locks. Okay, my
Jota,
internet connection is unstable.
yeah,
Okay.
internet connection is a little bit weak. I'm going to jump in quickly while we see if that recovers.
Probably is my kids watching.
And Jota was talking about agile principles, which is something that comes out of a development process for digital tools, where like a team is working together to try to make a product that will work. Well, whatever it is, doesn't have to be a game, but it could be a game. And the team has to stay in line while they all do different things. And so there needs to be some kind of feedback process where everybody can come back together and decide what the next step is, because sometimes somebody realizes on one team something that affects everybody else. And so there has to be this kind of coming back together. But if you're having meetings all the time, then the group will just spin in circles and no forward progress will happen. It's not exactly the same. And Jota, I'd be curious to hear your opinion on this, but I feel like as a teacher, there's a concept we call formative assessment that I think comes up in learner autonomy and gameful design. Can you guys type in the chat if you've heard, just say yes if you've heard of formative assessment, and type no if you have never heard of formative assessment, just so we get an idea if people have come across that. Lindsay's heard of it. Catherine hasn't. Bashir hasn't. I would expect that May, you probably heard about it sometime, yeah, because it comes up. So I wonder if you don't mind, Jota, I'm going to ask May to speak about it. May, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Don't worry, I'll back you up. How do you understand formative assessment? Like, what is it?
Well, it's been a long time, to be honest. I'm not sure if like
Don't worry, we're here.
I remember this. Let's say what I learned in Concordia, we learn about how to like they have assessment that you will need to give them for a long term like adjustment, and like the test that is like adjustment at the spot. I'm not sure which one is formative assessment actually.
Mm-hmm. I use it in the sense that a formative assessment is a little mini test you give people, and Jota's actually demonstrated it a few times in the pathing, where you decide if the person's really ready to go on yet. And if they're not, you adjust what you're doing based on what their readiness level is. You can do that for a group, and you can do that for an individual. But Jota, I think your internet's back, so I'll get off stage.
Okay, so going back to formative assessment, so we use gameful design and we use agile principles, basically because both of them focus on formative assessment if we talk about education, okay? Because gameful design you always have checkpoints like a game. It's not like you measure like at the end of the level. Summative assessment, which is like not the opposite, but the complement of the formative, is your midterm exam or your final exam, like those big assessment that you have to take. But what happens if you don't combine that with formative assessment, like a game measuring it little by little, or like agile checking all the time with the students, you're going to have a lot of unpleasant surprises. When you only use summative assessment, a student from the perspective of the student, I'm doing well. Then you take the test and you fail. And they're like, what happened? And then from the perspective of the teacher, I think my students are learning. I think my students are learning. And then they take the test, boom, they fail. Okay, that is when you actually don't have formative assessment. Now, the examples that I put in the Excel are too general. We have a specific assignments and tasks that are way more specific and more creative. But when you talk about formative assessment in language learning, I give you an example. We work with task-based learning, okay? Which is basically give them a real mission that they have to complete to demonstrate that they have learned, okay? So to give you an idea, from English and business English, the task is to go to a round table, a business round table, and exchange information. So to able to do that, they have to have a business card. So they have to create that. And then you as a teacher, you can imagine what information gets in. If you're talking about business, then personal information. So one thing that they have to be able to do is to share personal information, vocabulary, name, first name, last name, occupation, telephone number, email. And that includes spelling names or things like that. So if you talk about formative assessment, you teach them how to, like, what is the first name? What is the very basic English? First name, last name, questions, what's your name? How do you answer that? And you assess them very quickly that they can do that. And then you go into occupations, vocabulary about occupations, how to spell them, because they have to be correctly spelled in the business card. More than occupations, probably positions, all that. And you assess them. Okay, they are good at this. They can share their information. They know about positions and occupations. Then questions about personal information. You ask like, how are you? What's your name? What do you do? Whatever questions. You assess them, and then you say, okay, great, they can do that. Well, let's move forward. And then they design their business card, and then we have the final assessment, the summative assessment, which is the simulation of the roundtable. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to be successful because you measure that they can share the information. They know the vocabulary, they know the grammar. And then finally, you just have more than the final assessment, is just you are just confirming what you already know. So that is a combination of formative assessment and that. Why does it connect with gameful design? Because you gamify every single aspect and you measure like levels. Now, one of the things that they can make mistakes. So what happens if a student knows the personal information, knows the vocabulary about occupations, all that, but is having issues with the question making? You are not going to make that student go back to the beginning of the cycle to learn everything again. It's just that he needs to review a set of questions. So when it's gamified, you have those stages and they can come back and review and then move forward and complete. So that is formative assessment. And it's super important that you actually do that because that proves that your students have learned.
We're getting some feedback.
That's cool. I think it's you.
You're right.
Or is me? Huh? Okay. So consider that. The only thing that we have done is we have gamified that. From the outside, you can see that a class that is gamified or have used gameful design or agile principles is basically the same. but how it is the day to day is what is completely different. And what we move, we move forward and we towards is increasing motivation. But formative assessment, task-based learning are key components of this autonomy. Okay, Patrick, send me, bring me some water.
Yeah. I wanted to bring it back to some, since everyone here, except Catherine, is involved in our program, to some of the things that we've been doing for the learners, and maybe and as a way I've been trying to coach our teachers into thinking in this way, because one of the challenges is that most of the teachers coming through a training program like International TEFL Academy, though it's really great, have an idea about teaching that's really involves a lot of explaining grammar rules. And I think there's a role for that. But it doesn't really help people learn language and or to be more proficient and fluent. And so that there you have that knowledge and skill mismatch. And so in trying to do task-based learning, and we've created this model where we have 5 sessions to teach them something. 5 sessions to teach your learners something that you can see. And depends on the goal of the learner. One learner is intermediate level and they want to master their pronunciation. It's going to be really hard to see that progress because they've already gone so far that each little progress is very difficult to measure. Whereas if we want to improve someone's pronunciation at the basic level, like that's pretty easy to see. You can work on a couple of things, kind of like you were mentioning at the beginning. But even still, how would Lindsay or May or Bashir measure that success in the same way? It's very difficult, especially for novice teachers, because they don't necessarily know what they're looking for. And, you know, a Thai learner and a Spanish speaking learner, you know, may look very different in terms of how they progress when we're doing that. So what I've started to do is I give people an objective, and sometimes that objective is really clear. Like you said, make a business card. You have 5 sessions to make a business card. Why? Because this person wants to do business in English. They don't have a business card. Let's do that. And that's going to bring up a lot of opportunities for language practice. It's not very focused. It's going to be hard to measure their language goals, but they're going to be able to measure that they have a card. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong camera. They'll have a card and they'll be able to use it. On the other hand, when we're looking at the more long-term goals, what I'll tend to do is say something like, have them practice the certain technique 100 times over the next 5 hours. You can do anything else you want, but make sure they practice this technique or this activity 100 times. So that you can measure very well. Does it prove that they will have the same language gains? Well, if the activity is well designed and appropriate, then it probably will produce some gains, maybe more for some than others, but definitely if you, for example, if you're learning the piano and I say, practice concerto in B minor, I don't even know what that is, 100 times, you're going to get better at it. You're going to get better at it. Some people are going to be able to play it really well. Other people, maybe not that great, but definitely better than the first time they tried. And your job is just to keep motivating them and move them along and say, great job, let's work on that one passage a little bit more. So, so for those of you working through the concept of setting objectives for learners, sometimes we set a numerical goal, which is kind of like a point system. Do this 100 times. And we don't necessarily know exactly how far they'll progress, but at least it's easy to measure. Sometimes we have a very task-based outcome. At least it's very, at least we know that they've achieved that goal, but it may not be, we may not know exactly how long it's going to take them to get to complete that task. So Jota, I don't know if that gives you anything you want to react to, but feel free to.
Well, it's so whenever you are starting, it's more difficult to actually get those goals. And after, like when you have a student that comes, I want to learn English, and then but I want to do it for I have a grocery store and I have to speak in English and I don't speak any of it. So it's very difficult to actually analyze and get the learning objectives. So it's easier to start with a goal, like very simple tasks that the person is going to do. Like and you start analyzing the task. So okay, you're going to, what do you do normally? And you learn the routine of the person. And then you start coming up with the vocabulary and the grammar and all of that. When you start doing that, that is called, well, but that is basic course design and personalization of programs. You start analyzing it a different way. And what helps a lot is if you actually have course books. So if you are not sure and you see a task that is like that, you find something similar and you see what grammar or vocabulary objectives they have, and you just modify it to match the task that the person is doing. That is normally, that happens a lot in one-to-one classes, I'm just saying, okay? But it's always good to have a source of help. Like if you don't have the experience, there are books. I don't use books with my students, but I use books as a reference, because you always get information and you have exercises that can help. The other thing that you have to be careful with is that that's why I ask you which age group you want to teach, because autonomy depends on that. And the example with the piano that Patrick made, one thing to give you a good example of autonomy, if the teacher tells you practice this 100 times, like then I don't know, practice Let It Be by the Beatles, and you hate the Beatles, then you're not going to be motivated. But if you have like 3 or 4 different songs and one of them you prefer, but they are at the same level, that's why the teacher needs to know what material task gives, he or she gives, okay? And then the student is going to be motivated to do that. Now, going back to the age group, and in general, if you don't measure, you don't know if it is working. There has to be a way to measure. That it doesn't mean that you are going to take tests all the time or assessment. Like for example, in our program, we don't have tests with kids aging from 3 to 6, 7. They don't take tests. They demonstrate their learning, but we have rubrics and checklists to see what they actually can do, like what we call can do statements. If you try to actually give a test to those kids, they're going to hate English. So we focus on task-based learning too. So for example, are you able to play hide and seek in English? And then they have to know the numbers to play hide and seek. Super basic, but they can do it. So they prove that they know the numbers. Things like that. Now, when you grow older, then you can go into more standardized tests, but as a combination with formative assessment and task-based learning. Now, when you get older, especially adults and teenagers, they want to see their progress. And if you are not measuring them, they're going to hate you, because there has to be a way that they, okay, I know I'm doing this, but how well am I doing? And they get competitive. Now, talking specifically about adults, they always want to know why. Okay, so even though they want to know why and they want you to give them the specific rule, it doesn't necessarily mean that they learn like that, but you please them with the rule. So why is I am and now you are and all that? You can give them the rule. Some of them will memorize it, but most of them won't learn how to use it just by knowing the rule, but they need to know the rule to feel comfortable with the language. Most of the time adults are like that. Okay, so it's a combination. Now some people say like grammar is not that important, you should learn only to speak, and then some people are the opposite. I think it's a balance. Especially, for example, we have had people that come to us and say like, I don't care about it, but I'm going to be in business, of course, and they are going to understand your English, but they speak badly. So in business, if you speak like that, it's not a good impression, okay? Because they want to do business, international business and all that. They can get their idea across, but their grammar is so bad that the impression they give is not the best one. So that's why you have to find a balance between that and the age. Okay, the age. It's way different to teach a 3-year-old than to teach a 30-year-old, or even a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old. That's why I recommend teachers, and that is also autonomy, to pick their age group, or some people call it their niche, and they focus on that. And then you try to expand. That is also, again, autonomy, because you decide if you want to increase your knowledge and teach another age group or not. Okay, and you're going to learn different things. So what you want to promote in your class is to give your students that choice. Everything is a matter of choice. Can I do this? Or everything is mandatory. If everything is mandatory in your class, then they're going to hate you. Simple as that. You cannot make everything mandatory in your class because it's going to be way too strict. They didn't sign up for the army. They sign up for English classes. So there has to be choice. Okay, so that's why autonomy is so important. And now with technology, you can track different learning paths, so that saves a lot of time. But still, whenever you autonomy is different depending on the age group, so pick wisely. and then if you want to complicate your life like Patrick and myself, and you pick a broader range of students or age groups, then you have to learn more and spend more time trying to combine methods. But then it opens doors like training teachers. But anyway, it's every single age, it's different. So you have to learn more about it. I don't know. I think I'm done, Patrick. I don't, unless they have questions. I'm seeing that some people are already sleeping.
Yeah, I'd like to invite everybody to just type one thing in the chat that they feel like they might be able to use.
Nothing.
As people are doing that, Jota, I just keep reflecting on the grading part and the point system, and how, for me, I used to say at the beginning of when I started my teacher training program, is like, look, academia is a game too. There's just one. It's just one game that you have to play over and over again. You know, you get a different color pawn, and you know, the game is, here's the worksheet, fill it out, take the test. Here's the worksheet, fill it out, take the test. And I don't say it quite that way anymore, because one, academia is changing also with technology, and but I still think there's a big difference between practicing skills like the piano or a language, and learning the knowledge. And I feel that that a lot, as you mentioned right at the very beginning, a lot of language learning programs teach to the test. So that's the same as getting 60,000 points, but you still can't leap over a tall building or whatever special superpower you're supposed to be able to get. And I've really been wrestling with that more than anything else, is how to incentivize a point-based system that will create practice, but also check that against the actual skills that we want to learn. And so I've kind of been moving in a direction of like, if you practice 50 times, you'll get a reward, you know, a gift certificate.
That is
and if you
gamification.
But you still can't go to level 3 until you can do level 3 stuff. And I don't care if you have 1 billion points, if you still can't use the past tense correctly or whatever, you don't get to go to level 3. And that's just all there is to it. But you still can have a lot of points.
Okay, so I have an answer for that. And
Okay.
It's more difficult to see it in a language program, but it's easier to see it in a training program. And you have a training program for teachers, and they have to have knowledge, and then they have to prove that they can apply that knowledge in the class.
Yeah.
So basically, when you teach English, you can do the same things. So that's why when I past workshop about 3 different types of goals, we have knowledge, skills, and values. So normally what you do is, the knowledge is the easy one to put it out there, gamify, give me options, points, all that. Okay, and then you have the skills in language. It depends on how to apply this in different situations, contexts, or tasks. So when you actually gamify, it's like having 2 different programs, but they have to have connections in between to apply those things. So the learning path is, you have to start it like, this is let's talk about the ITA, because you know that the principles. And the principles in this case is getting them that basic knowledge to actually apply it and get the skills. And what is more difficult here to grab in a language are the skills, the ability. The thing that you actually want to gamify or use gameful design on, not necessarily the knowledge, but to let them know that if learning a language, they have to acquire those skills. So the assignments that you design, the tasks, are aimed at that direction.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good
So
stuff.
don't think about knowledge only.
Right, right. And at May, it's very interesting, your reflection after hanging out with us for a long time. You know, you're like, actually, I think I want to just go to working with the rules with younger audience, because you're in a, there's probably a couple reasons in May if you want to say something about it right now. We're at 10:30, so we'll go ahead and stop. But just to reflect on what she said, um, you know, teach them the rules, but the tasks involve real world applications of those rules. And the reality is, in a foreign language context, if you're working with, you know, high school and junior high kids, they have to pass a test. Until the whole system changes, they have to pass a test. Even if that test has really nothing to do with whether or not they can actually speak to a native speaker, they still have to pass that test. And if they don't pass that test, then their options are in life are not as good. And that's just how it is. I think that's wrong personally, but I don't change that by just saying it's wrong. We have to balance both of them, like you're saying, May. Yeah.
Balance.
Anyway, I took the last word there. Thank you everybody for participating. And we have another workshop with our friends in Vietnam, Don Fong, who's going to talk about service learning and global exchange. That'll be Thursday morning at 7 a.m. Portland time, so a little bit earlier, but that's very exciting. He's one of my professors, and we're going to be tying a lot of this stuff back into the global exchange work as well. Jota, thank you very much
Take care.
for all your effort. See you later this week.